my great honour to welcome you all.
It is a very prestigious award. It means the world to me.
They have great senses of humour.
I like to reveal past history to them. I love making history come alive.
They are some of the best people that you can come across.
To help them open their hearts.
I always come back to this quote. How can we be role models to learners if we're not learners ourselves?
It's quite useful to get out of our bubbles, not our COVID ones, and sort of see what else is out there.
By sharing best practice, we can see the whole picture. We can see what really matters.
Cloggs has one of the biggest brains around.
It's easy to forget how much has to happen behind the front lines.
As a global schools group, Cognita educates over 55,000 students across 12 countries. We're proud to be Wellbeing Partner at this year's Festival of Education, and we want to share the work that we're doing to prioritise children's well-being. This starts with a clear understanding of what well-being is. We looked at the evidence and created a simple Be Well charter that everyone can use day to day. It gives a clear definition of well-being and then focuses on the specific contributors that influence it. Discover our full Be Well Charter video and other resources to use with your students and families at cognita.com.
I really try to not look at myself as just a science teacher. I feel like as a teacher, it's very important to help students grow and develop outside of your lessons. A single teacher believing in you and really believing in you. One teacher doing that can have a large impact, but if you have one or two or three all telling you that and really, really believing in it, it makes you feel like you can achieve anything in the world, honestly.
Welcome to this Festival of Education keynote session, part of the annual Festival of Education, taking place online from the 16th to the 30th of June. This year's festival is free for all teachers and educationalists across education in the UK and beyond. This has only been possible thanks to the support of our incredible partners. A huge thank you to our headline partner, Pearson, our festival partners, BBC Bitesize, Cognita and Teach First, our literary festival partner, Bloomsbury Publishing, and our organising partner, Wellington College, the home of the Festival of Education. We'd also like to thank our incredible speakers. Over 200 leading educationalists and thought leaders will be providing sessions at this year's festival. On behalf of the audience and organisers, thank you. It's time to sit back and get set for our upcoming keynote session. If you wish to ask a question during this session, please head over to our Slido page to submit questions and vote for your favourites. Enjoy this Festival of Education keynote session.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Ackley. I'm a TV presenter on programmes like The One Show and Crime Watch Live. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to be hosting this panel discussion where we're going to be reflecting on all the lockdown learning content that the BBC has provided over the past year. We'll also be getting an insight into what's to come in the future. So let me introduce you to my fantastic panel guests. First of all, we've got Katie Thistleton. Katie started her career as a researcher within CBeebies before making the transition in front of the camera as one of the main CBBC HQ presenters in 2013. Since then, she's become a presenter on Radio 1 on a fantastic programme called Life Hacks. She's an accomplished author, she's a mental health ambassador and campaigner, and very recently she actually won Celebrity Pointless, so she's an amazing quizzer as well. And since a year ago, she actually became one of the key presenters on Bitesize Daily. So Katie, welcome to you.
Thanks, Michelle. I wondered if you were going to mention our victory on Pointless together or not. I'm glad you did.
Well, you've got the trophy Pride of Place, Katie, so it's got to be mentioned.
Very proud, aren't we?
We're very proud. We're very proud. Also, let me introduce Mrs. V. Mrs. V is a teacher who started her career in London working with students who'd been excluded from school. She then moved to Manchester to work in a city centre primary school and also went to work for a pupil referral unit where she's a Key Stage 2 and a Key Stage 3 teaching and learning assessment lead. And more recently, a lot of students will obviously know Mrs. V as being a teacher and a presenter on Bitesized Daily. So Mrs. V, welcome to you.
Hi, Michelle. Nice to be here. Hi, everyone.
And last but not least, we're joined by Cerys Griffiths. Cerys is the head of content production for BBC Education. So she's responsible for all BBC Education campaigns, content on BBC Bitesize Support and the Parents Toolkit, and headed up all of the TV content for lockdown learning. Cerys, hello to you.
Hello, it's lovely to be here with all you guys.
Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to speaking to all of you in great detail about Bitesize Daily and lockdown learning content very shortly. But first of all, just to put people in the know if they're not too sure what Bitesize Daily is about, it launched in 2020 with the aim of providing online lessons and TV programmes to help teachers, to help parents and students when schools were closed to the majority of pupils due to COVID. And it really was a phenomenal effort. Over 2,000 online lessons, almost 300 TV programmes. And what gets me is that all this was done in just 5 weeks. Amazing. Of course, the BBC Bitesize team couldn't have done it without help from educational organisations. They helped with resources. Teachers like Mrs. V were on hand to give expert advice. And what's lovely is loads of celebrities got involved as well. BBC favourites like David Attenborough, Stephen Fry, Gary Lineker, Marcus Rashford, even Liam Payne from One Direction, to name just a few. So as you can see, you know, inspirational people, amazing collaborations across this project. And before we start today's discussion, I wanted to show you a video that will give you a flavour of some of the Bitesize Daily content. Take a look.
Hello! School's off, but learning's not. Did that work? It was supposed to feel very motivating.
The purpose of this hairbrush is to sort my barnet out in the morning.
Hello! Welcome to a very special Safer Internet Day live lesson.
I'm going to share the yellow square into 2 equal pieces. These are 2 halves.
Hi, Marcus.
Hi, Pumpkin.
So with your pen and your paper, I want you to write down 3 things that you love about yourself. I'm going to do it too.
Well, it's a simple question, and in a sense, it has a simple answer.
There's satellite navigation on our phones to help us find our way from one place to another.
Hey guys, it's Liam here, and I am taking part in the musical Big Read.
I'm a gorgeous Viking scientist, and this is the wonders of the Viking universe.
Now, Henry really wanted a son to be king for when he bowled over. Bowled over, that means when he died.
Our heat is going to come from an amazing bit of kit called a candle on a stick.
So actually, well, like you, I went to school. Do you know what? It works.
Is that what you're after?
As you can see, really awesome stuff and so varied as well. So I'd like to start the discussion by taking ourselves back to the start of lockdown, March, April 2020. And Mrs. V, if I can come to you first, I mean, just going into a time when everything shut down, as a teacher, what was that like for you and your colleagues? How did you feel?
It was scary because we literally had 24 hours notice. We went into work one morning and the announcement was made, and it was right. We have to send everyone home, including the staff, and we are now in lockdown. So for me as well, working with vulnerable children, it was how can we continue their education in a safe but engaging way? It was just so daunting. It really was.
So how important was it for you and teachers to have easy access to Bitesized Daily content, and how did you want to use it?
It was an absolute lifeline because we'd been kicked out of our school. We had no access to printers. We couldn't make resources, but we still had to teach our children remotely. And straight away, we could go onto the website and everything was there for us. If we wanted to work on fractions, we could find that on the website and direct our children to fractions. We didn't have to, it took a lot of our work at load away. It was really, really useful. And it was something that we knew was trusted, was tailored to the curriculum, and would definitely be engaging for our children.
So how did you get involved in Bitesized Daily yourself?
Oh, it was so random. It was literally the right time, the right place. I'd worked for someone at my work, and his partner worked for the BBC. And he literally walked into the kitchen as she was on the phone to a producer saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know any bubbly teachers." And he literally said, "I'm sorry, can I just interrupt? I know someone."
that is mad.
Yeah, that is it. And the producer rang me and I thought I might need to do an audition or a self-tape. And she said, "Right, we'll see you Monday for a week." And that
literally
was it.
Just like that?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Went down the Monday.
What was the reaction like from students and your colleagues when they found out?
Colleagues were absolutely like, "Oh yay, amazing. My pupils not so much," because you know I'm like their mum, who's like, "Oh, mum's on the telly," so they weren't too bothered. But the colleagues were amazing, and they would actually ask me in advance, "What are you teaching? I'm going to tailor it around your lessons because it gives me an angle. I know you. I can get my children engaged." Yes, so it was just amazing for my colleagues, yes, and the children.
So good. And honestly, you're the perfect teacher for it. Because as you said, you know, you're so bubbly, vivacious, and that's what it takes to keep content engaging. So really, really great work. And Keris, just to bring you in, again, going back to the start of lockdown, as Mrs. V just said, everything happened so quickly. From your point of view, can you tell us a bit more about what was going on behind the scenes in terms of production and really launching the start of Bitesized Daily?
Well, the way Mrs. V talks sounds like chaos, and it's because it really was a little bit. We had a bit more of an inkling that it was coming, maybe a week's notice before we were all sent home from our offices and the schools were closed. So we literally, in the space of a week, decided we were going to do the online Bitesize offer and the television offer as well, the iPlayer, Red Button offer. We sort of scoped out the sort of breadth and scale of it really quickly. It's the last time I remember being huddled in a small room with colleagues. It's a long time ago now. And we quickly came up with a formula for it. And then we were all sent home, and it was all Zoom meetings. And we literally had to pull together a massive team because we had to have education consultants. We had to have a huge raft of, I think it was 150 hours we did in total, huge raft of teachers to be a teacher presenter. Obviously a huge roster of presenters to keep presenting the programs. We needed several production teams to write the scripts. It took us it was actually 5 weeks from the moment of deciding to do it before we were on air. So we had 5 weeks prep time and to start pre-recording them, and then we carried on recording for what felt like eternity, but it was actually until up to about July, I think. Early July we stopped recording. So it was mammoth, and it was frankly a little bit chaotic, because we'd never tried to do something at that scale quite so quickly before. But the beauty of it was that, it was extraordinary circumstances. So everybody rallied round. We got so much support from, you've already referenced sort of lots of partners that we work with, but also, the parts of the BBC, everybody came together to really sort of try and support us. And we quickly decided to focus on core subjects. We were able to, the Science Museum helped out. We decided to do, reading was going to be a priority, so we had to do book clubs for all our age groups. And obviously the Publishers Association, Puffin, people like that, so helpful, quickly giving us the rights to use books and things like that. So, under normal circumstances, we'd never been able to pull it off in that time scale.
It's immense, really, isn't it? But I don't know about you, Karis, but kind of reflecting on things now, it really does give you a different perspective on things. You mentioned, how people can rally around and come together and actually do things in super quick time that you'd never expect. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's quite amazing.
Yeah, and that's sort of opened our eyes to the art of the possible, really. And also we had to learn very quickly what were the key things that teachers needed, and it was English, math, science, reading, and we needed to make it very core concepts, because obviously UK-wide service, so there were lots of the curriculums are different, so we had to focus it down really quickly with the help of lots of teachers and education consultants. And then, as well as the television offer, we were creating all those thousands of online lessons as well, that parents could just watch the TV program and click on Bitesize, and your kind of child's learning for the day is laid out there for you. So it's a very coordinated effort before it's been two parts of our department as well.
And Katie, for you as a presenter that's worked across BBC Children's and BBC Education, what was your reaction when they asked you to be involved in this?
Yeah, well, I was really excited to be involved in it. I've done a lot of stuff for BBC Education in the past, lots of the live lessons, and obviously being a CBBC presenter for so many years, there's quite a link there. So I'm always up for getting involved with the educational stuff. From a personal perspective, it was great, because when all my work was being cancelled, that a job came in for the mortgage payment. So I was like, oh, great, there is going to be some work then, because we're going to be making these new shows. Because obviously, as you all know, and as everyone will know, events and everything were just completely going out of the window. So that was exciting, and just so nice as well to work with some of the people that I'd worked with on CBBC for years. That was great. And I think around that time, we all wanted to feel like we felt quite helpless. I think everyone felt really helpless. Like, can I do something? What can I do to help? So it was just nice to be involved with something that was so needed and so necessary and so well respected. So yeah, I was really excited to be involved.
What kind of responses were you getting from people when things were going online? Because I remember watching when it was on TV and you were hosting a French lesson, and I was learning French at the time. I tell you what, I know it's for parents and students and teachers, but I was getting a lot of value from it as well.
French lesson, though, was not my strong point. I've never done a day of French in my life. I did German at school. And I realised that day that my northern accent absolutely butchers the French language, and I cannot pronounce even the most simple French words. And as Karis was just saying, as you were just saying, it was so chaotic. We had to get all these episodes filmed quite quickly. So that day, I think the director had to make a decision to just take all the French words out of the script that I had to say and have the teacher say them instead, because there was no time for me pronouncing French words wrong. So yeah, French, I discovered, was not my strong point. But the reaction was unbelievable. I wasn't quite expecting it, but it just blew up. I mean, I remember when it was announced that it was happening, I just had no idea that it was going to be like that, and sort of woke up and just the Google alerts, my picture was all over the place, and my phone didn't stop ringing. It was just like radio stations and TV shows wanting to get a quote or have us on to talk about it. It was hilarious. I mean, Radio 1, they were calling me the Joe Wicks of education, because at the time, like, Joe Wicks was like obviously everywhere with the exercise stuff, and then it was like my face was everywhere with the education stuff. It was absolutely hilarious. Like, it just shows how necessary it was, how needed it was, because it really blew up. And figures wise, I've got some great statistics here. 3.8 million visits to the BBC Bitesize website for the online lessons, and over 5 million requests for the TV show on iPlayer, and that's just that first term. So yeah, we just saw the records completely broken on the website and on iPlayer and on CBBC and on BBC Two. You know, the figures were through the roof. So
astonishing. It was so good. And I want to play another clip now, because we've got a little compilation video that's basically showing children getting involved with Bitesized Daily at home during the first lockdown. So this compilation was collated just after 1 week of learning, and basically it's just so lovely to see young people of all ages getting engaged in the Bitesized Daily content. So have a look. I mean, what is it like watching that back? For me, it's just amazing to see. That must be quite rewarding for you, especially, Keris.
Well, actually, but it was for the team, really, because we had a massive team, and by that point, they'd been working flat out for 6 weeks. Like, I mean, round the clock. They were exhausted already, and there's a long haul ahead of them. But to see that as reaction at the end of the first week was the fuel in their engines that kept them going, that kind of stuff. The audience sort of loop, the feedback, getting the praise from teachers and kids. So thank goodness it was a success.
Yeah, I second that, because I think, you get into a bit of a bubble with TV and you're just in a room, a green room. And you forget the audience, you forget the hundreds of thousands of millions of people that are watching. And as Kerry said, everybody in every single role was working so hard. We were exhausted. We were like crawling to the car park at the end of the day. We worked such long hours to get it done, and you see that and you're like, oh, actual children.
It was worth it.
Sometimes you forget, don't you? So it's so nice to see that. Yeah,
definitely. And Mrs. V, I mean, I guess one of the big things about Bitesized Daily is the fact that the topics covered in the programmes are all aligned with the curriculum. From your point of view as a teacher, I mean, just how important was that?
It wasn't just important, it was essential. These children were out of education, so they had to have learning at home. And I just don't know how the writers did it, because each time they hit the nail on the head. It was fantastic. And I know Chris talks about the turnaround, how quick it was, but the quality was amazing. Like, even when I was performing and presenting, I thought, you know what? I need to bag this for next term, because this will be perfect for autumn 1. And we're covering decimals. It was just so engaging. And I think the timescale was perfect as well. The 20 minutes was just enough to capture their attention and their imagination. Hats off to you all. Amazing.
So there you go, Keris, stamp of approval from Mrs. V right there. So give us an insight then into just how you went about doing that, because it's one thing creating engaging content when you think of it from a TV format, but then to align it with educational needs and the curriculum, that's something else, isn't it?
It's easy to answer that, because it's teachers. BBC Education always works with teachers, and they're the experts. What our team is expert at is bringing stuff to life, converting into a studio, a concept, how to, kind of a script for presenters, for teachers, fun graphics and film. That's our expertise. but the actual learning side of it and the topics to cover and the points to hit, that's, you know, all down to the teachers and the education consultants we work with. We work with a lot who also worked extremely hard during that period, because a lot of them, you know, they were, you know, forget that the teachers were, so often some were in school because they were, you know, protected groups in schools, but there were other ones that weren't in schools or had children to look after or parents to look after, but also doing online lessons sometimes. So, you know, we had teachers working for us who were also doing 3 or 4 other jobs at the same time. So, you know, hats off to them too as well, because it, you know, we had that support.
And Katie, what about you? Because obviously you're an experienced, accomplished presenter working with an experienced, accomplished teacher in a different kind of format, really.
Yeah, completely. But I think that was brilliant and worked so well, because I mean, I kept saying to people at the time when I was doing all the press interviews, don't worry, I'm not in charge of your children learning. We have actual teachers, because I think there was a misunderstanding a bit about that at the start. People were like, what, Danny Dyer's in charge of a teaching nation? It's like, well, he's getting involved because we love him and he's brilliant and charismatic and funny, but it's not just Liam Payne and Danny Dyer and me. It's going to be actual proper teachers who do this day in, day out and know what they're talking about. So I think that dynamic worked really well, because, you know, we can bring the silliness, we can be that familiar face for the audience that they know from children's TV, but then here's an actual proper teacher, and hopefully that struck the right balance between it being too learny and too fun. You know, we need somewhere in the middle.
That's it, that perfect balance. And Mrs. V, from your point of view, how did you manage to kind of adapt what you'd use in a classroom scenario that's engaging to, you know, the studio format? Did it feel very different for you?
It did feel different, but you've got to remember, as a teacher, we are performing.
Yeah.
We stand in front of a stage every day, and we've got a very tough audience sometimes. So we're used to thinking on our feet and trying to be engaging and trying to bring stories to life. So that's what we're used to. So it wasn't that much different, really.
I always think there's quite a similarity, really. Like, when I became a presenter, it gave me a real new sympathy for teachers, because how tiring it is to sort of stand up and talk all day, especially to children, especially to a child or teenage audience, you know. So I think it's quite similar. And I felt so sorry for some of the teachers at the start, because we literally, I mean, like you said, Chloe, how you described how you got involved. It was the pandemic, it was so quick, we need these teachers. And some of these poor teachers never done TV before were just pulled into this green room, put in front of an auto cue and told to stand 6 feet away from me and present. And I think they were like, what's going on? So everyone handled it so brilliantly. And then this time round, it feels like you're all just like absolute pros. You're better presenters than we are.
No, but you teachers were also, you presenters were the teachers as well. I know Corinne was saying, Mike, you need to do this, and Ramsey was giving me tips. Everyone was teaching me.
Oh, that's nice.
It worked both ways.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Did you get a sense of that too, Karis, in terms of almost like the fluidity between presenters and teachers and that kind of, you know, solid relationship?
I think what I'd like to think is that we sort of a few new styles were created, because some of the teachers, I mean, there is obviously that strong connection with performance, but we just did a big swoop. You know, they had to be local. We couldn't put anybody up overnight, so they had to be Greater Manchester, travelling distance, and free to come in sort of at the drop of a hat. But, you know, most of the vast majority of the teachers that came that we managed to round up were, you know, brilliant. You know, there's a couple, you know, Mrs. V was probably sort of in the higher echelons of just being a total natural. She rocked up and she could do it from day one. But there were, you know, the vast majority within a couple of days were sort of, really relaxed, but, you know, sort of really got into the swing of it. So, but it was a great formula. I think it's one we're continuing with. But they, you know, like Katie says, a little bit of silliness and sort of innocence from the presenter, if you like, and that kind of guiding, slightly more serious voice of the teacher that gives it that kind of credibility, really. So yeah, it really was.
And I think the teachers, sorry, Michelle, I think like the teachers that kind of came in and just tried to forget they were on TV and just taught their lesson, really nailed it, because, you know, I think sometimes we can all be thrown by there's a camera there, But like you said, Chloe, you do that every day. You have to perform, you have to engage an audience every day and teach them. So I think that's the key to it, is forget there's a camera there, forget there's an earpiece and a director talking to you, just teach your lesson.
Just forget all that and teach.
That's what I did. I made a whole career out of ignoring them.
And let's talk about the celebs that you got involved as well, Keris. I mean, you had some amazing names. How on earth did you manage that?
Oh, well, two reasons, I think, if I'm honest. One, that they hadn't got anything else to do. They had time on their hands. But two, also, there was that sense we talked about right at the beginning, that people really wanted to help. They really wanted to be involved in some way because of that sense of helplessness. So it's never been easy. And never been easy. They were coming to us, agents were contacting us saying, how can I get involved? So it was absolutely phenomenal for that. And we got some great names. There was obviously some, we might have approached a couple of Hollywood A-listers that didn't get back to us, but by and large, most people that we asked were really helpful and, and did their bit. So it was, and they had to, it wasn't a small ask really, because we're asking people like Stephen Fry to film himself reading from a book, and reading it nicely. And so it wasn't a small ask, it was quite a big ask. So
and you've got to read it nicely there, like you would say to a child. Read it nicely.
Read it nicely.
The children.
Are you reading it nicely, Stephen? I hope so.
You got about a 7 out of 10 for that one.
Room for improvement, Stephen Fry.
No. But what about also? I know you want to talk about David Attenborough. We've got David Attenborough because the Natural History Unit said they'd help us get him. Obviously, people don't know much about David Attenborough, but he doesn't. He's not a man with a mobile phone. So you have to ring his house and all that kind of stuff. So they facilitated that, and he said yes, he'd love to. Couldn't do it in vision. Obviously, he was self-isolating at the time, the age he is. So what we had to do was the NHU bought a brand new set of audio recording equipment and had it delivered by a well-known delivery company to his garden, where it had to sit for, I think, it's like 3 days to decontaminate. And then he was able to take it in, and then he we had to be taught how to use that particular set of kit. Meanwhile, we had the most excited assistant producers ever on our team who were writing scripts for David Attenborough to read out around geography, and we did geography and we did science with him. And we did a set of 3, I think, to begin with, sent the scripts off. There were some minimal changes. We recorded them. It was absolutely brilliant. We've got some lovely images and graphics and animations to go with them. And he enjoyed doing it so much, he offered to do some more. So we bit his hand off and got about, I think, another 9 done. So we had about that he did for us, which was just phenomenal. And he said the team were absolutely beside themselves and so nervous.
Yeah.
Writing, and there were a couple of changes. There were things that he knows his stuff, so you want to get it right. But it was great. It was really wonderful to have somebody like him involved.
And we've got a clip that we can have a look at as well, haven't we?
Let's begin in Europe, where I'm recording this for you at my home in the United Kingdom. Europe has the world's smallest country, Vatican City, and the largest, Russia. Russia is so big it crosses 2 continents, Europe and Asia. Asia is the largest of the 7 continents. It stretches from the Arctic Circle all the way down to the equator. Asia has some of the hottest deserts, the tallest jungles, and the highest mountains. It's also home to orangutans, the largest of all tree-living animals. Our next continent is Africa, which stretches across the equator and is shaped a bit like an elephant's ear. You'll find real elephants here, together with animals like lions and hippos. And the world's largest desert, the Sahara.
Just epic stuff. Right, we're going to move on and talk about what happened after Christmas now, because Christmas arrived, didn't it? We were able to enjoy limited celebrations with friends and family, but no sooner had we seen in the new year that we were back in lockdown again, schools were closed, and the BBC naturally stepped in once again, and lockdown learning was launched. Let's take a look at another clip.
It's Monday morning as millions of children are once again studying at home today. The BBC is launching the biggest ever education programme in its history.
Yeah, lessons aimed at primary and secondary pupils will be broadcast across TV and online. One of those behind the project is Professor Brian Cox, who joins us now alongside the BBC's Director General, Tim Davie. Morning, both.
Good morning.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. So many parents, children wake up this morning going, right, here we go again. Brian Cox. It's intimidating, isn't it? What's your recommendation to people?
Well, it is. And if you remember back in March, April, the BBC had a primarily online offering, tremendously successful. It's a place where, as you said, it's very challenging for parents to become teachers. It's actually not challenging, it's impossible, because teaching is a profession and most people are not professional teachers. But this material is prepared with the help of teachers and a host of people. I mean, you mentioned myself. We've also got Heston Blumenthal teaching food science. We've got Marcus Rashford doing PE, so these are experts in their fields. And in March, April, we saw it was hugely popular, but it was all online. We had something like 70 million downloads of the lessons. So people needed it and used it. The difference this time is that it's also on television, because I think everybody's realised is that there's a huge problem with children and parents who do not have access to fast internet and laptops and so on. And so that's been remedied this time. So that there are lessons on CBBC with all these people, as I said, who are teaching the lessons, and also BBC Two. And it's also focused this time not only on primary but on secondary. And so, for example, in the afternoons, this week actually, not to be self-promoting, but we've got one of my series, The Planets. The reason we've got that is because it's linked to the curriculum. So all this, and the key point is all these lessons are they're curated by experts, teachers, educationalists, and so on. So they do fit. It's not just putting your children in front of the television to keep them quiet. It should be seen as part of the homeschooling effort.
So as we said, in January, we were back in lockdown again. Most children obviously unable to attend school. The BBC stepped up again to provide the biggest education offer in its history. Karis, what was going through your mind at the time? Did you think you could do it all again?
I was thinking, thank God we recorded 150 hours 8 months ago. And I was also thinking, what can we do to up our game? What was missing last time, and how can we do it better and more, we were never going to go back and do the same thing over again because we had all that massive library of content. And how could we make it bigger and better and more valuable this time, I suppose, was the process.
And so tell us a bit more about the decision to make the programming available on CBBC and BBC Two, and why that was so important.
The first time round, the decision had been taken that we would have them on the iPlayer and also on the red button, because we felt that, we were very aware the first time around that some children wouldn't have access to the internet in quite the same way. So we thought the red button was a solution to that. It proved not to be the case, because it's not a solution that's known to young families, young people at all. So the second time around, it was really important to give access to all those programs to children that didn't have access to laptops and iPads and stuff like that. And then, in the first lockdown, had shown the scale of that issue as well. So that's why we had them on CBBC and we had them on BBC Two. And it also gave us the opportunity to schedule them with other programs of learning value for the right age group, because CBBC has got a whole raft of stuff that's so valuable. It's like they've got horrible histories and Operation Hour, things like that everyone's heard of, but there's a massive roster of programs that you can use for that. And then on BBC Two, we were able to schedule some of the dramas that are studied at GCSE, some of the great history programs that BBC does for adults, but sort of slightly altered and sort of, maybe slightly edited for a slightly younger audience. So it was a real opportunity to give a fuller offer, if you like, a fuller service, and to a bigger audience, really.
Yeah. And Chloe, as a teacher, you work with vulnerable children. How important was it to have access to bite-sized daily content, in your opinion, across mainstream channels?
It was vital because, as mentioned, not many pupils have access to the internet at home. We had lots of children who didn't have the data, or if they do have a laptop or an iPad, they've got siblings who also need the laptop and the iPad. What we found was so great about the TV being on mainstream was that all the siblings could watch it together. So at our school, the older siblings were watching the Key Stage 2 programmes with their younger siblings, then helping them out. And then the older pupils could then watch their own programmes on BBC Two. And it was just, and I think as well, a lot of children, they need routine. So to know that every day on the same channel at the same time was just essential. They do love to have a routine, and they really got into it after the lockdown, the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that destination point, isn't it?
It is.
And Katie, can you tell us about some of the content in the programmes? Any highlights for you, things that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, of course. So on the Bitesized Daily programmes, I worked on the secondary ones at this point, and we would always focus on the core subjects, English and maths, obviously, but then we'd always do another subject each day as well. So that could be science, geography, music, PE, French. Obviously, I have my favourites, obviously, the ones that I think I really enjoyed science, actually, because that would often involve an experiment. Which sometimes was a bit chaotic from a filming perspective, but it's just always fun, isn't it, to see a science experiment done right in front of you. And we had people from the Museum of Science and Industry come in and do those experiments in front of our eyes. So I was like, oh, this is amazing. So we had all these different topics. And then we also had themed weeks, which I really enjoyed. So we had Science Week, full of experiments. We had Creative Week, which I really enjoyed, because then every segment that we would do would be themed around that particular topic, and I found those really fun. And then, yeah, as Keris has said, the lockdown learning content, combine those shows with CBBC shows that, I mean, if I was a kid and I was told that my school day had to consist of watching Art Ninja, Horrible Histories, Operation Ouch, I was well chuffed. They're actually just good, funny, brilliant shows that you don't realise you're learning from. So that as a package, I think was just great. And I think it's so true what Mrs. V said there about the routine. We all need a routine, we all need a structure. I think we've learned that from these past 2 years. And yeah, knowing that 9 o'clock you sit down, you watch for these few hours, and then maybe you go and have a run around the garden. That was just so important, I think.
Yeah, and I think also one thing I noticed was, the inclusion of well-being content and exercise, and especially from, your point of view, Katie, as a mental health ambassador, to be able to, feature things that are looking at education in a real 360 way was, so important as well.
Yeah, I mean, my favourite bit was the sort of well-being strand that we had every day, because that's right up my street. And we'd kind of have it themed for every day. So we had like Motivation Monday on the secondary programmes, Top Tips Tuesday, Wellbeing Wednesday. And then we'd have some of these famous faces or experts come on and give advice about how to look after your physical well-being. We'd have sort of sports people giving advice about that, or your mental well-being. And we work with sporting organisations on that, like British Cycling, British Gymnastics, the Premier League. And that was just so important. I mean, there was a real emphasis on that at the time, wasn't there? We were all like, oh my goodness, what a mess this is going to be for all of our mental and physical health, especially students who've had the rug pulled from underneath them in a big way. So that felt really, really important at the time, and still is.
Well, yeah, on the subject of exercise as well, the BBC commissioned a new programme as part of lockdown learning to encourage secondary students to keep fit. Work Out the Right Way. It was presented by Mark Wright. It was shown on BBC Two and online. We can have a look at a short clip and we'll talk about it after.
We are lucky enough today to be joined in our muscle moving workout by social media superstar, Strictly Come Dancing superstar, all-round fitness superstar, Saffron Barker. How you doing?
My intro. Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm excited to work out. Okay, one of my favourite warm-ups without hitting this line is actually, you might have done this when you was on Strictly, but this is what I used to have to do every start of the session. It's just bend over to one side.
Nice.
It's far as you can go, and then come up and go the other side.
Great stretch.
You know, yeah, you should be able to feel that stretch.
Oh.
And then flat back.
Okay. Who's your Strictly Pro that made you do this?
AJ.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So Keris, looking at that clip, how important was it to have programs like Workout the Right Way as part of the lockdown learning content?
Well, as Katie said, it was massively important because the things people were worrying about as far as young people and children were concerned are, are they learning and are they staying healthy? And that was it was a very quick commission. It was an idea that was put forward and commissioned really quickly, and then inevitably, when the point came to film it, I think it's out there in the public domain. Mark Wright tested positive for COVID. But being the absolute trooper he is, he didn't feel ill, I don't think, and he agreed to film it himself. It was a hugely tight turnaround. So when they weren't going to be live, they were going to, the pre-records. There was no time in which to sort of reschedule it or anything like that. So he was again, the equipment was left with him. He was remotely given instructions on how to set it up and how to film himself, and he had to go do the workout in his freezing garage. Turned out to be. So yeah, it was beset by problems at the beginning, but it was really important we did stuff like that just to sort of cover off all different aspects of child well-being during lockdown.
Yeah.
I think everyone's got a newfound respect as well for teachers and also people who do the technical side of things. I never want to have to be. True. I never want to do the technical side of things ever again after this pandemic's over.
Oh no!
I'm be in charge of the sound, the cameras. No.
It does give you a newfound appreciation all round, doesn't it? For sure.
Yeah, you make sure that's why you need a team. You can't on your own. Exactly. You need a team of people to help. Yeah.
This is it. Let's talk about live lessons now, because Katie, you presented some of the live lessons during the lockdown. Some of the BBC Teach live lessons that are normally only made available to teachers on the BBC website were also broadcast on CBBC. Can you explain a bit more about them and the subjects that the live lessons have covered?
Yeah, so BBC Teach has been live lessons for years and years, covering a range of subjects. So that's one of the ways that I'd been quite involved with BBC Education before the pandemic and all the Bitesized Daily stuff. And they're great. They're curriculum mapped out, interactive lessons, usually aimed at primary school pupils. And I think they're really good because, as the name suggests, they're live. They're a great opportunity. They stream out, and they're a great opportunity for teachers to kind of get their class together, all watch something, all get involved with the activities. They're always very interactive, send their work in, send their answers in, get shout outs for their school. So they just have that really fun element, I guess, that can just shake up a lesson. And I really enjoy presenting them. Me and Hacker did one last year, actually. That's the last one I did, which was a wellbeing live lesson. So that was really, really nice, with Mr. Smith as well from Bitesized Daily. And that was about helping pupils transition back to school after the lockdown and summer, because of course that is a huge thing. We're all facing it now, transitioning back to socializing or back to the office. And, it's not easy for us, is it? And also there's recently been a World Book Day live lesson. There were some numeracy live lessons for primary pupils, and before Christmas there was a science live lesson from Chester Zoo, which was a delight to see as well.
They are so varied. We've actually got a clip of another recent live lesson. This is the Big Schools Winter Watch live lesson, which was on earlier this year. It was made in partnership with the RSPB and BBC Two's Winter Watch. Let's have a look.
Hello and welcome to our Big Schools Winter Watch live lesson. So lovely to have you joining us, and a big hello to Mr. Smith too.
Hello!
Today we are going to be joining our friends at the RSPB and taking part in the Big Schools Bird Watch. Now, if you're watching from home, fear not. You can still take part in bird watching in the Big Garden Bird Watch, which starts tomorrow.
We're going to be learning all about identifying and classifying birds, understanding how-to guides, and showing you how to present your findings using charts.
We'll be talking to our friends Chris Packer, Megan McCubbin and Gillian Burke from BBC Two's Winter Watch. They will be answering Owl, you want to know about birds.
Nice.
Owl, you want to know, in our live Q&A later on.
That's good. We'll be doing lots of activities throughout the show, but don't worry if you don't have the worksheets to hand. You can visit the Live Lessons website after the show and do the activities there.
So wherever you are, wherever you're watching, we want to hear from you. Loads of you have already been in touch. If you have, you might well see your school name on the bottom of the screen now.
So, Karis, can you tell us a bit more about the live lessons for any teachers watching who haven't heard about them or haven't, thought about incorporating it into their classroom? How would you advise doing that?
Well, I think that, as Katie said, there's a great opportunity to get your class together around sort of a moment, and we try to tie them to sort of school calendar events or national events that have some significance, and give school, make something a bit special that schools and classrooms can coalesce around, if you like, and have a shared experience. So you could be, taking part in a live lessons with thousands of other classes across the country, and it just feels like a really nice experience to have. We've done a lot over the last 12 months, and we're about to do a lot more. We've really upped the schedule actually, because they've been growing in sort of kind of people, the teachers' awareness of them has been growing, and they've been getting bigger and bigger audiences. So we're now doing more of them, and we've got a whole raft. I think there's 7 new for this autumn. I'm just going to note here that we're kicking off with one around fitness, just ahead of National Fitness Day, which I didn't even know existed. But
does now.
But that's great. That's all about getting children active and looking after the diet and things like that. We're doing one first time ever to celebrate harvest, which I think is lovely. I don't think we've ever done that before. I think we've got another one that is about World Space Week. And we're doing one, we've got a new campaign called the Regenerators, called all about sustainability. So we've got one in November that supports that. So they're normally on big themes with a lot of learning packed in, but a lot of fun and a lot of interactivity. And they come with worksheets. So there's stuff that you can do in the classroom and sort of teacher notes. So they really sort of help teacher contextualize it in their day, if you like. So yeah, we normally publish the schedule of them in advance. So you should look out for that if you're interested.
And children are fortunately back in school now, but I know BBC Education is committed to being there to support teachers, parents and students for the remainder of the school year and beyond, as you've just touched on there, Karis. Katie, there's new episodes of Bitesize Daily on CBBC at the moment. Can you tell us about these?
Yeah, of course. So we've been back in the studio filming new episodes for primary age students. So again, we've got the sort of 20-minute episodes for different age groups, 5 to 7-year-olds, 7 to 9-year-olds, and then 9 to 11-year-olds. It's really funny when you film it, actually, because it gets progressively more difficult, and I can just about handle like maths for 5 to 7-year-olds, and then it gets to 9-year-olds, and I'm like, oh, this is hard.
Oh, I couldn't do that.
I'm like, did we do this at school at that age? This is so difficult. So yeah, every day is focused on a different subject. It's either maths, English, or well-being, and I love that well-being's getting that much of a focus. It's got its whole own episode, and yeah, we've got amazing teachers like Mrs. V coming in and doing her thing. And what's great about this time, what's different about this time, is we've got a new character called Cloggs, who is a sort of CGI robot. He's very modern, and he has all the knowledge, all the information in his big robot brain, but he doesn't really know how to deal with normal human life. So he's really cute and fun, and yeah, it's been really nice filming with him.
Well, we've got a clip of Cloggs now, so let's see him in action.
Okay, I've lost the disguise. Let's face it, I wasn't fooling anybody. Now, I imagine you're all wondering, what do word detectives actually do? Well, all will be revealed, but first, let me introduce you to the robot that puts the geek into chic. It's Cloggs!
Thank you, Mwati.
We're also joined by our very own teacher extraordinaire. It's Mr. McPartlin, everyone!
Hello!
Okay, Cloggs, we've got a case to crack. So tell us, as word detectives, what do we need to know for lesson 1?
Well, when proofreading, we need to consider 5 areas where mistakes are commonly made: handwriting, punctuation, grammar, spelling, and tense. When proofreading, we can also include some additional words to make our sentences better too.
Oh no, that just sounds like a whole lot of words to me. How are we going to riddle our way out of this one? Get it, Cloggs? Riddle? Wriggle?
I do believe you need to wriggle your way over to Mr. McPartland now, Moxie. You have a lot of work to do.
I think you might be right. Mr. McPartland, I need your help!
The lovely Cloggs there with Blue Peter, presenter Mwaxi Madenda. Katie, tell us a bit more about what it's like, because I mean, you are the master of this. Obviously, you've worked with Hacker the dog, who's a puppet. I mean, I kind of think he's a real dog, but yes, he is in fact a puppet. And then obviously this virtual character, Cloggs. What is that like?
Well, interestingly enough, the man behind Cloggs is a guy called Warwick Brownlow Pike, who is the puppeteer of Dodge the dog on CBeebies. So it's the same person. And we worked together for years on CBBC. We were a double act for like 4 years together. So we're the best of friends. So just amazing to get to work with him again. But never before have I or he done anything like this, where it's sort of CGI. And I mean, I think that's the right term. I might be using the wrong term. But I essentially we're in a green screen room, and there's a stick with a little bit of green on the top of it, and that's where Cloggs is, and I'm talking to him, I'm talking to a stick, and he's the actual man. Warwick's on the other side of the room in the most hilarious outfit, like a sort of scuba diving suit with all bits attached to it, and he's tethered to the wall, tied to the wall.
Is that for the purposes of the puppet, or is that just because he likes dressing in weird?
Just because we've got to keep him tied to the wall so he doesn't sort of run away. Yeah, I put that request in. So he has to wear all this stuff and have this screen in front of him, and it looks really strange. When I first saw him in it, I was laughing my head off. But it's great, and I think probably having worked with puppets for so long has made that not weird for me, because I'm sort of used to looking at an inanimate object and treating it like it's my best friend.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's a great skill. It really is.
Mrs. B, you've had to do that as well, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's just the world of television, you know.
Yeah. But then when you see those clips, you're like, look at Cloggs, look at the studio.
When it all comes together.
Yeah, but it looks very not glamorous when you see the behind the scenes.
And Chloe, you know, during the lockdowns, children were watching Bitesized Daily in their own homes. Now they're back in the classroom, as we mentioned. How can teachers, do you think, incorporate Bitesized Daily programs into their lessons? Is there still, you know, a solid place for that?
Oh, definitely, yes. And you've got to remember as well, yes, children are back in schools, but every week children are being sent home to isolate for 10 days at a time. So there is still a need for remote learning all over the country. But as for in the classroom, you know, like you said, the 20-minute episodes, we've got 3 different shows for 5 to 7-year-olds, 7 to 9, 9 to 11, and they're so engaging. You've got the advanced schedules that are available. I also follow BBC Bitesize on socials as well. That's what I do as a teacher. I'll say, oh, right, this is coming up this week. And it's always there for you. The website is always there as a key resource. You know, it's written by teachers for teachers, and it does tailor to the national curriculum. It's such a great point of call for any teachers.
It's really good to hear, and like we were saying, just to be working in tandem. Keris, obviously many teachers are going to be forward planning for the new school year over the summer. You touched on some content that they can expect to see. What about in September, and what's the best way for them to be able to keep up to date with new content launches?
So we are still in studio now. We're recording episodes. We'll have 2 weeks, new weeks worth of Bitesized Daily to kick off the new term in September, again focused on English, maths and wellbeing for those age groups. And then we're looking at potentially having some science ones for later in the term. But as Mrs. V says, you know, it's they can be great lesson starters. You know, if teachers, they want to do maths, they want to do about fractions, play a 20-minute program, a bit of fun, bit of learning, and then they can move on to the main body of the lesson, or they can use it to sort of boost the, sort of reaffirm the learning that they've just done in the classroom. And as you know, people pointed out, kids are still being sent home, class bubbles are still being sent home. So that's why we continue to do it. And I think it's a useful classroom resource once the pandemic is over, because they'll sit there. I mean, they're broadcast on CBBC, but they'll sit there on iPlayer for a long time, and you can use them whenever. And we also have things like, we did a massive raft of teacher talks, which are short 5-minute films, which are also on iPlayer, which are just very simply teachers straight down a camera explaining simple maths and English concepts. So if you're struggling with a maths and English concept, press play on that, and you've got a bona fide teacher explaining it to you really simply with lots of nice graphics. So there's a huge library of resources we've now got, and we want to keep building on that, so it can be the best it possibly can be.
Yeah, just keeps on growing.
If I can just say, I always direct our parents as well to the website. Because like you said, the teacher talks, if a parent is struggling with homework and they're unsure of how they've forgotten how to times fractions, I say, just go on, find it on Teacher Talks. It'll break it down and refresh your own memory.
Yeah, really good advice. And we've had some questions in, actually. So I'll read these out to you guys, and feel free to let me know what you think. One question, thanks very much for getting in touch, by the way. Working in teams online will be an important skill in future employability. Why are young people not being taught how to do this as well? I guess this is one for Mrs. V and Keris. What are your thoughts on that question?
Well, ICT skills has always been part of the curriculum, and people think it needs to be taught on its own, but everything is so cross-curricular now. You can start bringing iPads and other ICT into maths lessons, drama lessons, and even literature lessons. It doesn't have to be a standalone. I know people are scared of thinking, we have to teach about the world of technology in a standalone lesson. How do I do that? Technology is life now. It's everywhere, and it should be incorporated through every single angle of the curriculum.
I think during lockdown, it's quite difficult. You felt like you were addressing individual children, so it wasn't necessarily so much about working in teams. But I think now with live lessons, it's very much about working in teams and sort of collaborating and sort of having to think about stuff and coming up with ideas, solutions together. So, it's something we are addressing, but I think, lockdown has thrown that into sharp relief, hasn't it?
I was going to say, I feel like they will know better than they know more than we think, because they just, it's so normal to them, isn't it, to have a device around them in their house everywhere. I go up to screens and I'm like, is this touch screen? No, it's not touch screen. So if I'm doing that, I can't imagine what the children today are like.
Do you remember, I remember seeing that, it was a picture of it, it was like a toddler sat with his dad, and he was, attempting to read the newspaper, but he just kept touching the newspaper to try and expand on it to increase the size. Because again, as you say, kids from such a young age are so used to being on screens. Absolutely.
I've also seen a video of a little girl going around touching everything, thinking it's hand sanitizer. So she's going around to plant pots and things and going. And you're like, oh no, what has the pandemic done?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And we've got another question here that says, we know that one size does not fit all, but in your own experience, what learning platform do you think has been most impactful for online learning during the pandemic?
Well, as a teacher, I will have to say Bitesize Daily. Before I was involved, I always used it. It's always been there with those orange fish in the corner. Whatever I need to do, just quick Google Bitesize Daily RE or Bitesize Daily maths lesson. So that's been my biggest tool as a teacher. And I know all my colleagues as well, not just in my school, across the country, because it was just so accessible, and it still is. It's been amazing.
I think obviously that we're all going to sing the praises of Bitesize for the employers all. So obviously we're going to say that. But I think for me, like you say, Chloe, I remember I used Bitesize as a teenager. I'm sure we all did, and a child. And I think you mentioned earlier that the trust element, like sometimes as a parent or a teacher, you haven't really quite got the time to start sort of fact checking something, and you just sort of know. And being someone who works for the BBC can wholeheartedly tell you that so much goes into making sure everything is trustworthy and everything is safe and everything is kid friendly. And so I think that trust element is what you get, don't you, with Bitesize? You just know that we all have gone through the ringer and we all have made sure that everything is spot on.
I think the whole pandemic experience has revolutionized the way things are taught and the platforms that are used. As a parent, I've got a child in secondary school, a child in primary school, so I've seen Microsoft Teams, I've seen Seesaw used as platforms, and the interesting thing about those is sort of how the teachers use them. So I think there's lots of tools available to teachers now, and it comes down to the individual teachers, their creativity and their kind of their imagination around different platforms and how they use them. So that's something that I've experienced as a parent, so watching my children learn through different ways. Obviously I'm going to sing the praises of Bitesize, but I do think the whole business around it has changed, and we're going to see some quite innovative stuff coming out of that as a result of the pandemic, which can only be to the benefit of students and teachers, I think.
Well, guys, we've come to the end of today's session. It's been such a pleasure talking to all three of you, and thanks so much for sharing your insight, your advice, and everything that you've been up to over the past year and are continuing to do. Thanks for people sending their questions in as well. If you need more information about BBC Bitesize, then go to www.bbc.co.uk/bitesize. And that's it, guys. Thanks again. It's been lovely.
Oh, thanks everyone. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for
Cheers.
watching.
Bye.